I want to open this up by saying that you can be radically imperfect and you can be totally confident at the exact same time. That not one of those negates the other. You know how we sometimes live in that spiral of like, if I'm imperfect, I can't be totally confident because I'm missing something. And if I'm totally confident and walking out who I am, I can't be imperfect because that's going to ruin my confidence. But what if you could actually be both at the same time? What if true confidence was actually embracing your imperfections and loving them well? What if true vulnerability was actually honoring how incredible you are? What if those things actually work together and they don't work against one another? I want to open it up with that because we are in such a crazy, chaotic time. And there is a lot of imperfection that could come up. There's a lot of vulnerability that could come up. There's a lot of, can I be confident that might be coming up? And so I want to continue to have us return to that framework of I can be imperfect and I can be confident at the exact same time. And in fact, those two, when they work together, when they come together, that is the most powerful form of living. Secondly, I want you to know that I believe so much at the end of the day that we are all human beings. And I want us through this entire online conference to remember that at the end of the day, we're all humans and we're all just having conversations human to human, and that every single human being can become a permission slip for you. When you see something in someone else, when you see success in someone else, when you see greatness in someone else, when you think, man, that person is so, so good at this or so, so funny, that is not something that takes away from you, but that is something that becomes an invitation for you to say, I can have that too. Because every human life is imperfect, but also every human life is amazing. And it's not about, it's not about one being more amazing or one being more imperfect. It's just about the journey that each and every one of us are on to embrace both of those things. And so I like to open up with that because I like us to return to that connection. And guaranteed, if you're watching this, you are in this game for humans, for a love for humanity. And so I want you to remember to not exclude yourself from that as well. Before we do anything, before we get started and really dive into what I'm here to talk to you about today, which is the beauty of creating community through the art of learning how to see people, I want you to do something for me if you're able to. And I just want you to say it in your head or to say it out loud or to yell it at the top of your lungs, depending on your situation. I just want you to say, I am extraordinary. I am imperfect and I am extraordinary. Some of you have been in a loop of saying, I am, you might think I am great, but I'm really imperfect. As if it's like, oh, well, sorry. You could have been extraordinary, but now you're imperfect. Instead, I want you to just say that out loud with confidence. I am extraordinary and I am imperfect. No disclaimer needed. No disclaimer needed. Let yourself say that. Feel it. It's good. It's good stuff. So today I'm just really gonna dive in with you on how I really approach creating community. Now, when I say community, could mean literally a million things in your life. in work. It could mean like how to create community in your home, could mean how to create community online, could mean how to create community with friends, how to create community in your workplace. And we are near the end really going to touch specifically on the area of the workplace. But no matter where you are creating community, this framework and concept can really be applied in any way. Because I believe the true definition, the true way to create community is to learn how to see people. Learning how to see people in their vulnerability and in their greatness at the exact same time, like I spoke about at the beginning. Allowing people to find space with you or with what you're creating, to realize that they are seen and accepted in the areas that they feel not enough, and they're seen and accepted in the areas where they are truly amazing. Now, here's the crazy part. A lot of people operate in this reality that they are imperfect, but they don't necessarily believe they're great. I would argue that most people have a running laundry list of all the ways that they're imperfect. But if you were to ask them, now tell me all the ways that you're amazing, they would probably look at you blank. They would actually feel more vulnerable to share those things. Which is why we need to really create space for both. Because if we only see people in their greatness, we might idolize them. If we only see people in their vulnerability, we might demonize them. But when we can see them in both, we can truly create a space of belonging and community for them. And I mean, the same goes, when we're talking to people. If we're only pointing out what makes them great, they will never grow into their full potential. If we only point out the things that make them imperfect or vulnerable, we'll only isolate and hold them back and potentially add to some painful stories that they may already be carrying. And so the true perspective and approach that I see on how to build community is to come together and bring those together at the exact same time and create space for people to feel seen in their greatness and in their vulnerability. Now here's the clincher. Are you ready? The clincher is that I would argue that it is almost impossible to see other people if you have not yet taken the opportunity to learn how to see yourself. It's going to be really hard to see someone in their greatness if you have not yet learned how to see the greatness in you. It's going to be really hard to see someone in their vulnerability with so much compassion if you have not yet learned how to see your own vulnerability and your own imperfection with compassion. It could be, because it could just be hard. It could be uncomfortable. It could be, I don't know how to do it. It could be, this is bringing up a lot of things for me. And so we need to start to see ourselves in both so that we can see others and so that we can create community. We can create real, genuine community. Often when it comes to ourselves personally, when we're looking inside and we're like, let's do this. Like, I'm gonna see myself. What I mean by see myself is like, can you connect with who you are? Can you validate your own experiences? Can you accept yourself? Can you practice confidence? Can you take genuine good care of yourself? Or is it always on the outside? I'm waiting. I'm waiting to be noticed. I'm waiting for someone to see me. I'm waiting for someone to take care of me. I'm waiting for someone to celebrate me. Or have you taken that deep dive into realizing, like, I can see me, and one, then I won't be so hungry for other people too. But two, then I can see others. But when it comes to seeing ourselves, it's very important still to keep those two. Like, I want them to be like, just like, I really want you to walk away with that. Those two. You have to have both. Because for personal, if you are taking the time and you're like, yes, I'm going to practice seeing myself, and you only see yourself in your vulnerability, in your imperfections, you're going to come out with a lot of conclusions. You're going to probably come out with conclusions like, I'm too messy, I'm too imperfect. Might trigger other stories like, I'm not enough, I don't know what I'm doing, I can't do anything right. If you see yourself in your vulnerability with harshness, even, that even takes it up a level, can be self-hurting. But if you can see yourself in vulnerability with compassion, that can also bring healing. And so it can't stop there, though. It can't. It just can't. If you stay camped in there, you're going to disqualify yourself from all the amazing things that you have to bring. Both, not just in what you can do, but in your presence. And so, but if we swung the other way, which I would say the tendency is more to camp out in the vulnerability piece. But let's say you're someone who swings the other way, and you are camping out in greatness. Oh, I'm great. I mean, I'm only great. Then you are truly limiting yourself, one, for growth, because you're not acknowledging the imperfect aspects of what you bring, which are truly just opportunities for greater strength and leadership. And you're really robbing yourself of that. On the flip side of that, you might resist seeing yourself in your greatness because you think that it might be too arrogant, that you don't want to take up too much space, that you are someone who serves or someone who more hides in the background, and you don't want that to get in the way of that. That maybe feels like it messes like with a core value, and so a lot of those things could start to come up. But I want to challenge you to start seeing yourself in both, to acknowledge that you're imperfect, to acknowledge that you're incredible, to accept that you are imperfect, to accept that you are incredible, and to own it, to own that you're imperfect, and to own that you're incredible. I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story and part of why I'm so passionate about the art of learning how to see people, and how that can be incredible. How it can be an incredible way of building community. So I grew up feeling super invisible. I didn't feel like my parents saw me. I didn't feel like anyone saw me. I felt like I just sort of disappeared into the background. My childhood was very traumatic. There were a lot of things that I had to walk through. Um, and it sort of really lodged this question in my heart like, do you see me? Does anyone see me? That's such a primal need in us as human beings to feel seen. And so I was like, I need to get this need met. And so I started playing with a lot of different ways to get that need met because I didn't know how to see me, and my parents didn't teach me how to feel seen. And so I did it through many things. Posting on social media. Does anyone see me? Having like a wild list of achievements. Does anyone see me yet? Playing around with addiction and unhealthy behaviors. I'm just wondering if you see me now. And even though others would practice, or give me moments of feeling seen, I was not able to receive it because I had not learned how to see myself. Which is also why when we can create a culture in our communities where we not only see each other, but we learn how to each see ourselves, it becomes a powerful combination for transformation and for people to walk in their leadership. Because that's the other thing. If you are practicing seeing people in your community, but your entire community is not knowing how to see themselves, it does not matter how hard you go into it to see them, they're going to struggle to receive it. It's going to feel like sifting sand because they have not learned how to see themselves. They ultimately have not created a container to feel seen. They just have hunger. So that the life-defining moment that changed things for me was when I learned how to see myself. I remember the first moment I did something about it. I went into the mirror, I looked myself in the eyes, and for 30 seconds, I just looked myself in the eyes. And it was like I couldn't remember the last time I had looked myself in the eyes like that. And I just cried. Because when you have been ignoring, when you have not seen yourself for a lifetime, and then you take the moment to do it, it's like this like insane moment of kindness. And so I began to take a journey for myself, learning how to see myself. Um, some of that was through self-care. Some of that was through being in community. Some of that was through kindness, through committing to show up, whether that was in my business or my work, whether that was in places of community that I belong to, whether that was in time with me. Looking back in that mirror, and it transformed my life. It made me realize that I could show up and I could see myself and I could learn how to see others in a way that would become absolutely transformational for them too. So many people think that they cannot be seen in their entirety. So many people live a life as if they could never be seen in their entirety. When we challenge that, first with ourselves and then with others, that becomes such a sacred and transformational space for others. It's amazing. It's amazing. Trust me, once you do it, you'll be hooked. So I'm going to go through a few things. I'm going to go through a couple of things that might get in the way of you truly seeing yourself. I'm going to go through a couple of things of how to shift the way that you see yourself. But then I'm going to shift more into how to create community and how to create culture. And I hope by the end of this, you've gotten so much value out of it. And so, if true community is the balance of vulnerability and extraordinary, that leaves room for all of our humanity. If we focus too much on one, we'll either demonize or we'll idolize. If we focus on both, we'll create true spaces of belonging. So if we're starting with how do we see ourselves, how do we also not demonize ourselves specifically? These are the three things we want to look at that might be getting in the way, that might sort of be fogging your glasses from seeing yourself in the way that you were made to be seen. One is negative beliefs. Negative beliefs that you have about yourself are going to are kind of going to get in the way of you fully seeing yourself. So what often happens when we have negative beliefs about ourselves is that our brain looks for evidence to support whatever it is that we believe about ourselves. That's why you can have two people go through the exact same experience and come away with a different conclusion. For example, let's say two people are working on a project. The first person believes all I do is fail. They're working on the project together and something goes wrong. Their brain goes, that's evidence. All I do is fail. And that's going to cause them to spiral and not be able to really own who they are and see their own greatness in order to finish out the project strong. Now let's look at the second person. Maybe they're operating in a healthier mindset of, I am so good at making things work. So when something goes wrong in the project, their brain instead lights up and says, wow, this is an opportunity to try something different or to learn something new. And they're actually going to be able to bring more energy and passion and power into the project. Exact same experience, two very different conclusions. If you have negative beliefs, it will rob you of being able to see yourself. Now here's the thing. Negative beliefs don't usually transform overnight. If you've been believing a negative belief about yourself for a very long time, you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and it completely be gone. Those negative beliefs usually are severely tied to many experiences. And so instead, what I like to do, and I'll tell you more about this in the second part, is find different evidence to form new beliefs. Second thing that can really get in the way is shame. Specifically, it's hard to see yourself in your imperfection if you already feel ashamed. Because shame equals let's hide, let's shut down. We're not safe. Shame is something about me is bad. Something about me is not enough. And I need to hide who I am. In order to continue to operate in shame, you actually need to disconnect from yourself. It's not safe to be with yourself if you're feeling a lot of shame and believing that you're bad. And so, if someone came to you and they were like, what do you think makes you imperfect? and you're having so much shame about all the things that make you not enough, you're not going to be able to say, well, sometimes I like really am afraid of what people think. You're going to be like, I'm running away right now. So shame. And the key to really healing shame is connection. In any area that you feel shame is an invitation and an opportunity for connection. Connection heals shame. I want you to remember that. And 3 is just a lack of confidence. You don't see the good in you. Might be in the way you talk to yourself. Maybe you really resonated earlier with when I said you have a laundry list of all the reasons why you're imperfect, but you don't have a list of all the ways that make you amazing. Make a list. I beg you. Make a list. Make a list of 100 reasons why you're amazing. You don't even have to show it to anyone, but just do it for you. Show it to me. I love it. Now, let's talk about 3 ways to shift the way you see yourself. These are really going to tie on to those last 3 points. So number 1, change your experience. Change your experience so that you can find new evidence to create new beliefs and that your brain gets on board. New experiences can trigger new beliefs. So think about it like this. What is a negative belief about yourself that you want to change? And ask yourself the question, how can I give myself an experience of the opposite? So let's dive into an example. Let's say that you have a negative belief that that it is easy for people to reject you, whether that's even like pitching in work. You're just like, all I'm going to get is rejections because it's so easy to reject me. Honestly, it sounds horrible when you say it out loud, but I know that some of you believe that. So you want to change that belief. You want to believe that people love you and people want to bring you close, not push you away. How can you give yourself that experience? So maybe you can think about it in terms of like, maybe you pitch a couple people first or a couple people for a thing that you are 97% sure they'll say yes. Maybe it means that you feel yourself in a moment when you look, when you see someone, when we're out of this quarantine, and they see you and they're excited to see you and they come towards you, allow yourself to be in your body and in your brain and feel that in that moment. Be like, look, they're coming towards me. They're not running away. Allow there to be like a list of evidence that is created out of those new experiences. So you can kind of bypass the brain a little bit. Number 2 is practicing self-care and connection. Self-care and seeing yourself inspire one another. So if you are taking good care of yourself, whether that means in like terms of emotional self-care, physical self-care, financial self-care, I would say it's almost impossible to practice self-care without seeing yourself. That to practice self-care, you need to see yourself. You need to look at yourself. You need to embrace yourself. You need to accept yourself. That is just a part of it. And so it's an incredible way to create that connection for yourself. The third piece is growing your ownership of self and cultivating true confidence. And like I said at the beginning, confidence is not perfection. And you do not have to wait to be perfect to be confident. But true confidence is to radically accept and acknowledge and own who you are. Both the amazing sides, the sides you love to show the world, and the sides that you don't, the sides that maybe you tend to hide. That realizing all of me matters. All of me. All of me matters. All that I have to bring to the table, all that I am, all of me in my entirety matters to the planet. And there are countless ways that you can learn to cultivate confidence. Um, and some of that's about changing your mind. Some of that's about healing your past. Some of that's about self care. Some of that's like about doing things, creating habits, creating rhythms that help you feel supported and confident. Um, and so if you ever have any questions on that, also feel free to DM me. Um, Now, for the last few minutes, I'm just going to talk a little bit about creating workplace community and creating culture. Um, my sort of, I guess you could call it a formula for how to create workplace community is really just three things. You may notice I really love the number three. So easy to remember. All good things happen in threes. Um, One, see the gifts in people. Never hesitate to tell people what you see in them. Do not hesitate. Tell people often. Tell people generously. 2, acknowledge bravery. When someone is stepping outside of themselves, when someone is doing something new, when someone is coming up and stepping up to the plate, acknowledge the bravery that it takes. And 3, celebrate the wins with people. Be so insanely generous in celebrating people. And I don't mean that like even monetarily or like we're gonna throw a party every time someone has a win. But more just in the energy and the approach that you bring to people of like, my gosh, you did so freaking amazing at that. Wow. Bringing so much of like a full embrace of people. And really using all three because it shows that one, it creates a sort of a community one where people feel like they matter, feel like they do have something to bring, feel like they will be acknowledged whether they were successful or not, and that when there is a win, that they will be fully embraced and held in that. It leaves room for vulnerability. It leaves room for failure. And that all those aspects are still celebrated. And I know that some workplaces you can even play around with the idea of celebrating failure, celebrating when a team put everything into a project and it maybe didn't turn out how we hoped, but we celebrate and we acknowledge that courage, that bravery, that work, that input, the lessons learned, the experience made. So remember that. Seeing gifts, acknowledging bravery, celebrating wins. And then I just wanted to pause and stop in and just talk about culture for a sec. I'm insanely passionate about culture. I believe culture has the capacity to impact lives, create experience, give something incredible away before anyone ever steps into a room. When you're able to create an intentional culture that the entire community runs with, that's transformational. And so the way that I approach culture, it honestly is a lot of like thinking about like what do we value, what are we about, what are the things that we want people to really embody in their space, what are the things that we really want to give away, what are the things that we want to be generous and sort of like unlimited about. How do we want people to rise up? How do we want people to be transformed? How do we want people to grow in this space together? And then communicating it consistently. communicating it consistently, letting people know what the culture is so that they can grow into the culture. And especially if you are starting something new, or if you have not had a culture before, or maybe you're trying to heal it or transform it, this is the way to really get it across, is just to communicate it consistently. Um, and I would say that creating culture happens easily and happens beautifully if you have created the foundation of seeing yourself, empowering people to see themselves, creating an atmosphere of seeing. Because then when you come in and you're creating a culture, it's easy because people already feel safe and open and trusting. So I'm going to give you an example. For 2 years, I ran an event, um, which is currently paused because of the virus, but a camp for 5 days. We met in the middle of the woods in Canada, and people would come from all over the world. And I was really intentional, like, we're going to have a culture here. We're going to have a culture here. And so the culture was really marked by a few things. Number one, by encouragement. We don't hesitate to call the good in someone. By connection. We value human connection and genuine relationships versus just listening. We value having fun. We value bravery, taking big steps of action and celebrating them. Um, and we value vulnerability and self-care. And so I communicated that to the attendees before they came. I put them in the welcome packet that they got. The first night I spoke to them. We put it in different sort of aspects of the decor. It was like written on posters that were like all over. It was everywhere. What ended up happening specifically in the first one, because no one had experienced the culture before, was that people really ran with the culture, embodied it. It gave them permission to really run with things, and it also gave them boundaries of what this space is not about. And so we had created this, for example, with the encouragement one, we had created this letter board where everyone had an envelope, and you could leave encouraging letters in everyone's envelope. There were like 80 people. And the last night we ran out of paper because there were so many people that written encouraging notes, and like envelopes were overflowing and people needed new envelopes, and it was like this whole thing. And I remember that someone came up to me and said, this is the only event I've ever been to where where we ran out of paper to write love notes and encouragements. And I believe that part of that was the culture was created from the beginning. It allowed people to really run with it. They didn't need to ask permission. They just got to go for it. And it became such a transformational thing without me having to come in and be like, listen, write 5 notes for everyone. But it just was like the overflow of what had been created. So thinking about how can you create that in the culture of whatever you're building, how can you really communicate it consistently, allow people to run with the culture of what you're building, allow them to be to take the culture of places that you never could, because you're only one person. And so there's just something for you to think about, something for you to chew on. But at the end of the day, I just want you to know that when you can see yourself, when you can truly see yourself, when you can truly see others, that you can foster spaces of community and belonging and championing others. Yeah, you can. And I believe that that the more that you practice it, the more that you practice seeing people as human beings first, the more that you practice meeting people with compassion in their vulnerability and practice celebrating people in their goodness, that you'll see that when you allow people to be accepted in the entirety of who they are, that they become aware that they belong, that they become aware that they matter, they become aware that they have something to give. It allows for each and every individual to grow significantly and accelerated. It allows for the entire organization or workplace or family or friendship group to grow exponentially. It allows this almost beautiful effect of like we get to go so much further together. We get to go so much faster together than we could on our own. I mean, I know, normally, realistically, if we look at it, we think, oh, it's faster to go alone than it is to go with people. But I believe that when you can truly learn to see yourself, when you can truly learn to see others, you'll go faster and you'll go further because you are building something on a foundation of we see each other in our humanity. We see things in each other that we could never see in ourselves. And it allows us to grow. It allows us to be known. It allows us to love ourselves in our vulnerability. It allows us to awaken our confidence. It's changed the game for us. Thinking of you all and sending you so much love in this time. I'm going to be back doing a workshop on Instagram hashtag campaigns and hope to see you there.